And now, it's time once again for the show that gives glorious voice to 25 million business owners across the fruited plain. Radio Free Enterprise with Frank Felker.
Thank you, Dude Walker. Yes, indeed. I am Frank Felker. Welcome back to Radio Free Enterprise. My guest today is Joe Altieri. Joe is the inventor of FlexScreen, the world's first flexible window screen. He's also the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar company of the same name, and a successful past contestant on the ABC television show Shark Tank. Joe Altieri, welcome to Radio Free Enterprise.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
So glad you're here, Joe, and I appreciate that you blocked out some extra time for me today. We really have a lot to cover. I know everybody wants to know all about your experience on Shark Tank. And when I say everybody, I mean me. I really want to know about that, and I want to dig into it. But I think the best place to start for people who may not be familiar with your product or you or your appearance on Shark Tank is to talk about that. What exactly is FlexScreen? What's so innovative about it?
Well, as you mentioned, we're the world's first and only flexible window screen. So the sides of our screen, they flex in. So it makes it really easy to install them and remove them from your windows. They also don't block the view like a normal screen does. So a normal an old style aluminum screen, which most people have on their windows, actually blocks up to a square foot of the view, and they're nearly indestructible. I mean, we have videos online of me pounding them with hammers. That was one of the big things on Shark Tank, was me pounding our screen with a hammer, which of course a regular screen would never put, it would just get completely destroyed doing that. But we run them over with cars, we throw them off of buildings, and so really it was, FlexScreen is born from all the problems that homeowners have with regular window screens. We by a lot of fortunate mistakes, we solved all of the problems. So that's what FlexScreen is as the quick elevator pitch there.
Well, and I know anybody, and that's everybody, has ever wrestled with a window screen, trying to get it open, or it's crooked, now I can't get it to move, or it won't lock in place, or it's, all of the problems with window screens. They should definitely go to flexscreen.com and watch those videos, and it will become immediately apparent what a breakthrough idea this is. And I really have to congratulate you on your video marketing, because there's a video you have that's only 51 seconds long. And in that 51 seconds, it becomes abundantly clear what the big deal is about this product. And so I'm a big fan of video marketing, and I congratulate you on doing such a great job. We'll also come back to how that intersected with the folks at Shark Tank. So let me then ask you, when was it that you first started working on this? What year do you think it was?
It was a little over 8 years ago. Now, the thought of something better in the screen industry has been a goal for me. I've been in the window industry and in the screen industry for about 20 years, and so it's been one of those things that's rattled around in my head, that there has to be a better way, just because of all the problems that my customers, which again, I'm a window guy. I was, for most of my professional life, I've been in the window and door industry, and every window that gets produced has to have a screen on it. Homeowners expect to have a screen on their window, but there's a lot of problems with them. There's a 3 to 5% reject rate on window screens. Again, that's one of those things that most homeowners don't understand, but 3%, 5% of every single window that goes out has a screen that's bad. That's a huge financial burden for the window manufacturers, and a big pain for the window dealers and the homeowners. So,
and I imagine for the installers as well, who then have to go out and replace that screen with no additional revenue associated with it. This is another area where you and my careers cross. I did a lot of sales work in the home improvement industry. I've made a lot of in-home sales presentations. It sounded like you did as well. Since then, I've done a lot of marketing for, the roofers and the windows and doors guys and all those people. And I hope that we'll have time at the end of our conversation to come back around to the home improvement industry and talk a little bit about what you learned there about successful marketing and sales, and how it impacted what you've done here with FlexScreen. Okay, so 8 years ago would be 2013. At what point did you have like a minimum viable product, something that you could either demonstrate to manufacturers or sell to homeowners?
So it took me about 2 years in my garage. And again, this is, me trying things that I could buy at Lowe's and Home Depot, walking through a store like that and going, can I make a screen out of that? Can I make a screen out of that? And so it took me about 2 years to come up with what I call my bubble gum and duct tape prototype. And when you say minimum viable, that's exactly what it was. It was what is the absolute minimum that it could be, but it was enough to show the concept. And that was important. That was a big step, to come out of the garage with something in my hands rather than an idea. And again, from there, at least then I could start describing this to, patent attorneys and things like that to try to see if anything like this had ever existed before.
Right. You never know. You absolutely never know until you do those searches. And of course, that involves investment with the attorneys and so forth. And so, that's risk. You might spend a few $1,000s with an intellectual property attorney, and he comes back and says, sorry, somebody already has this. So that's a big risk. And with that in mind, I want to ask you, what was your thought relative to your business model? In other words, let's say you could patent this and you could manufacture it and you could sell it somehow. Who did you think you were going to sell it to?
So again, because I was in the window industry, there were a couple different avenues that I could explore. One of the big window companies, maybe I can just sell the patent to them. One of the window screen suppliers, most window screens are not produced by the window manufacturers anymore; they're produced by large window companies, and so. Maybe one of those guys might want to, buy this or license it or something like that. Truthfully, when I came out of the garage and I had something that worked, I was just surprised that I had something. So I was open to absolutely any way of getting it out into the world.
Interesting.
And yeah, and again, just some fortunate things that had happened with my journey. I got an NDA from I got an attorney. They gave me an NDA so I could actually start showing it off a little bit to see if it was just more than just my excitement. Could I get some excitement out in the industry as well? We did invest in getting the patent search and at least the first patent application. That was a personal investment from my family and I. So we started showing it off into the industry, and we had an offer from an equipment company in our industry, and they said, "Look, we'd love to buy this idea from you, this patent application and this idea." And I reached out to a personal friend who was in he owns several companies. Some of them actually control IP, and he owns some IP. And I just laid it out in front of him and said, what should I do here? I don't know. I don't know how to grow this. I'm a sales guy at heart. I've never grown a business. And what should I do? Should I sell it? What should I do? And he took some very of his valuable times, took an entire afternoon, sat down with me, looked at the whole opportunity, and then just said, give me a couple days. Let me think about this. Let me let me come back to you with my suggestions. And that was on a Thursday. He came back to me on a Monday and said, if I were you, I wouldn't sell it. This looks like it's a huge opportunity. And I can actually help guide you if you're interested. I can invest myself, and I also have some other people that have invested with me in the past, and I can help you to grow this business if this is something that you want to do. And so he was my first investor, and actually introduced me to our first team of investors. So again, very fortunate that I had that in my life. But I think there's a lesson there as well for some of your listeners. If I wouldn't have reached out and been humble, if I would have thought that I knew what everything, I never would have put this in front of him, and probably never would have gotten to the point where our business is today. So.
That's great. Yeah, it's good. I think it was Dirty Harry who said, man's got to know his limitations.
That's it. Absolutely. I am quite aware of how much I don't know.
Well, that's good. Good on you. It seems like the older I get, the more I figure that out. Well,
Yep.
and it is interesting and fortuitous, as you say, that person was in your life. But that also, to me, sounds like the first strategic investor that came into this business. This was a person
Absolutely.
who had more to bring than just a checkbook. They also had this experience with IP, intellectual property. They knew other investors. They knew a lot that you didn't know about how to leverage an innovation like you had created. And okay. So I think this is a good point to tangent then pivot into your experience at Shark Tank, because those people also were strategic investors. Now, my understanding is that unlike most companies who go through a lengthy application and interview process in order to try to get in front of the sharks, that the producers at Shark Tank actually reached out to you after having seen some of your video marketing. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, we the first thing that the window and door industry loved our product. They really did. It solved a lot of problems, especially operational problems, because our product didn't get damaged as easy. And so, but we had this issue where traditional window screens were invented in the early 1900s. So if you look up the patents on traditional window screens, they are a metal window screen with a rubber spline, looks exactly like the screens that you're probably on your house. So
No
nothing had
kidding.
changed in over 100 years.
Hmm.
So turning an industry that had gotten used to something for over 100 years was a bit difficult. So we had this slow yes situation that was going on. We had a lot of people like, yes, this is great, but who else is using it? Yes, this is great, but we'd have to educate the homeowners. But yes, this is great, but so we had to find a way to get through that slow yes. And for us as a young company that didn't have $5 million to do a 15-second spot on the Super Bowl, we said, look, video marketing is the only way that we can tell our story about a flexible window screen that nobody can even fathom what a flexible window screen looks like. We had to show them. And so we just started doing funny, crazy videos. And again, it was really basic back then. We put a black curtain up behind me. We put a table in front of me, and we were doing some iPhone videos and using basic video editors to make them and put them out on social media. And through those efforts, the Shark Tank producers found us. They said, "This your product looks great. You look like you're a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you come on." I'm not kidding. We thought it was a joke. The first phone call, we're like, "Yeah, whatever. That's I'm sure one of my buddies is giving me a hard time." Then we got the email, and I'm like, "Oh, well, somebody's going really far with this joke."
Right.
And then the second call came. We were like, "Okay, it says Sony Pictures. I guess we should answer this one." And but yeah, they asked us to come on, and so we skipped an awful lot of steps that most people have to go to a cattle call where they're at a convention center and they get a minute to pitch in front of the producers, or they send in a video application or something like that online. I want to say it's around 100,000 people a year
Wow.
are putting in applications. And the year that we aired, so it was 29, or not that we filmed 2019, they had 5 that they actually reached out to and asked to come on the show, and we happened to be one of those lucky 5. So
now 100,000 people a year apply. Are you saying there were only 5 the whole season, or was it 5 just on the one episode you were on?
5 people that the Shark Tank producers actually reached out to.
Oh, I see. Rather than the 100,000
for the whole season,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, there's however many, 4 or 5 per episode that get through, but most of those are, they, like I said, they've gone a different way, and they have a lot more steps. I mean, we went from them contacting us, we were filming within a few months. Most of the time this is a year process by the time you go through everything.
Could you just
we were
nail
very
that
fast.
down? What month they contacted you, what month it filmed, and what month it aired?
I want to say I think we got contacted in April, and we filmed in June, and then we aired in January.
So April and June of 2019 and January of 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Now we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of this. As for me, as somebody who's watched the show, religiously for years, we always think, well, if I'd been that guy, I would have said this, or he never should have said that. Oh boy, he really ticked off Barbara on that one. or, there's always that kind of thing going on. Had you been a fan of the show? Had you even seen it before you went on?
Yeah, I had seen it. I wasn't a religious
Hmm.
viewer of it, mainly because I was in the middle of growing a business,
Sure.
and so one of the frustrating things as somebody who's going through this as a young company is you have these companies that go on Shark Tank and they're like, I did 12,000 in sales and the valuation of our company is $300 million or something ridiculous, and you're like,
Right.
oh my goodness, like you have no idea what you're talking about. So I didn't necessarily want to feel those feelings as I was struggling to grow my own business, but I did
Hmm.
watch it every once in a while. We would have it on a Friday night or something like that. So
Well,
and one of the things you always as an inventor, which is weird saying that I'm that, but when you have something new, the thing that everybody always gets said is you should go on Shark Tank. You should go on Shark Tank. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
that's funny. So
So
did you hear that a lot?
I did, and that's why
Yeah.
we thought it was a joke. We thought
Right.
that the call was a joke because again, we had heard that so much. But
Okay. Now, having watched it and you don't have to name names, which I
mhm.
imagine you probably wouldn't want to name any names. But were there any of the sharks that you felt, let's say, more kindly towards, or any that you definitely didn't want to become a partner with? And as I say, you don't have to name a name, but did you have any sense of that before you walked in that room?
So what's interesting is first of all, the thing to remember is they show 12 minutes, 14 minutes, right? I was in front of them filming for 2 hours and 37 minutes.
Wow.
So you really do get to know their personalities a little bit through that. There's a lot of back and forth. It's just it doesn't make good TV. Um, so when we were going in, we were actually targeting Lori. We thought that Lori was a good partner for us, mainly because we were
Hmm.
weak with retail. We're
Hmm.
mainly, like I said, mainly we sell to the window manufacturers. So the retail side is just something that I it wasn't in my wheelhouse. We had done a little bit, but we wanted somebody that was a bit of an expert, and Lori is. But Mark Cuban was by far the nicest person in that room. He
Interesting.
yeah, he really understood our business model. He was very kind. Even as he was trying to understand, he wasn't overbearing. Mr. Wonderful was probably the worst. And again, look, he comes
Yeah.
across that way, and I know they play a little bit of a character. Again, it's a TV show. They're playing a little bit, almost. Bigger than they actually are,
Hmm.
because my understanding is because now I'm a part of this community of Shark Tank entrepreneurs. We talk to each other, we have online groups, we meet up together. My understanding is he's a fantastic partner. He's one of the best sharks to
No
have.
kidding.
Yeah, he goes above and beyond for the companies that he partners with. He really gets into their day-to-day lives, helps them to be better entrepreneurs, not just let me make your company better. So again, we never you don't get that side of him from the TV show, but
Well, and
yeah,
he really cultivates that hard ass reputation that,
he
people
does.
call him Mr. Wonderful and he wears it like a badge. So, but in your case, when I was watching the episode, he's like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lend you, $600,000 at 9% interest. And I was like, wow. And I was thinking, do I really want to borrow $600,000 from that guy? I thought, ooh, I don't know. But with that in mind, there's the next thing I want to ask you. So I mentioned to you in a previous conversation that I've had a number of guests on here and we've talked about raising money. And there are
Mhm.
things about valuation and profits and revenues. And you mentioned that, people, I did $12,000 in revenue last year and I won $100 million for my company. Even so, your call or your request, 800,000, wasn't it, for 6% of the company? Was that
Mhm.
it?
Yep.
As Mr. Wonderful said, I missed it the first time and I ran the calculator myself. That was $13.3 million valuation on a company that had 5 million in top line revenue and not a lot in bottom line profit. What I'm saying is that was a pretty strong call there that you made. Where did you pull that number from, first off? And the other thing is, was that just a starting point for you Or was that really what you wanted to come out of that room with?
So we actually worked very hard on our valuation. Again, one of the behind the scenes Shark Tank things that I'm probably not allowed to say, but whatever. They actually have a business consultant that is willing to work. They works for the show, and they'll actually work with you on helping to understand the what the sharks are looking for with valuations and things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting fact. Less than 20% of the companies that go on the show actually use them. Mainly because they don't want to hear that their baby is ugly, if that makes sense, right? They want to go in there with a valuation, and they don't want to be convinced otherwise. So, we went in, and again, what you see on the show is a very small snippet that is there for drama, right? It's they're there to create a good TV show first. The rest of it is secondary. So, you don't go from your valuation stinks to, hey, three sharks wanting to make a deal with you without them understanding where you came up with that valuation.
Okay.
So there was a lot of, again, 2 hours and 37 minutes, probably an hour and a half of it was just helping them to understand our business model and understand why, even though we had, low bottom line, it really it didn't tell the whole story. We're a growing company, we're reinvesting, all of those types of things. So profits they're just not important at that point in our trajectory, and we had $5 million for the year before but the year that we were in, which is 2019, we were going to be over $10 million. So we doubled our top line, just from year to year. And so again, all of those things get a little bit lost in the translation of the TV show. Yeah. So,
well, and I'll have to say, because, I do a lot of video and editing and that kind of thing, and I understand that, but they tell you their editors do a great job of increasing the drama and the tension. But they also did a good job of showing Mark Cuban going, about 3 times. And virtually everybody on the panel nodding their heads and going, wow. And, when you did the product demonstration, et cetera, it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, I've done a lot of investor presentations, and that's part of the reason why I'm so taken with the Shark Tank thing. Did you have a positive feeling right out of the gate as soon as you started talking, or did it warm up?
So what happens in the show? Number one, it's the most surreal experience ever, right? So they're all A-type personalities, right? So they all want to be heard. They all are vying for attention from you because that's giving attention from the cameras and the audiences, right?
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things that, hindsight, you look back and go, oh, I see what was happening here. The producers try to warn you. They're like, look, you need to own that stage. You have to own those moments, because they're going to want to talk over each other and stuff like that. So, they pretty much leave you alone during the pitch portion, right? So that's the thing that you memorize as you're going in. Hey, Sharks, my name's Joe Altieri from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That section of it. They leave you alone for that. Then when they start getting into valuations and understanding the business, they're talking over each other. They are, they are, and they're arguing. They're saying, "Hey, why are you answering her question? I asked my question first, and don't why." And so there's all of this stuff happening. So in your head, you're answering a question, right? Your mouth is speaking. You're formulating the next answer to the next question that you have to answer while listening to them at the same time. All at the same time, you're having this out-of-body experience going, oh my goodness, am I standing in front of all these sharks? Is this really happening? So having this, to say I had a warm and fuzzy was probably a little bit of a stretch, but I could tell that they were impressed by the demonstration right off the bat. Like it was, there was a lot of great questions. There was a lot of, wow, I have this problem, in my own house. Again, you don't think about the sharks taking their screens out, but they're real people. They do deal with these things. And so,
if I could interrupt you, because you mentioned as soon as you walked out and started saying, hey, I'm Joe, et cetera. So I actually broke this down because, as I say, I've done a lot of these presentations. I help coach people on it, making investor presentations. That situation is unique because I can't remember an investor presentation where people are shouting at me and shouting at each other and I got cameras on me. Generally it's more of a one-to-one or one to a sedate group of investors. But here's what, and I want to ask you if what I'm about to say is the way it was live or if it was edited down to this, because your introduction, your elevator pitch was so sharp. I couldn't believe it. You came out and you said, excuse me, you said your name and hometown. You said the name of the product. You said what problem it solves. You said we're the world's first and only flexible window screen. You pulled it out of the window. You beat on it with a hammer. You put it back in the window. And while you had your back turned to them, you said FlexScreen is an industry disruptor. And then you turned around and you asked for the investment. So who wants to get on board? And it was 1 minute and 3 seconds. And I was like, that was awesome. So was that the real deal or was it edited down?
No, that's the real deal. So when it looks like, when it looks like you're going to be on the show, they assign a producing team to you. So I had 2 guys that were with me for this entire journey, and they and again, these are some behind the scenes things, but every Friday I had a call with them, and they pretty much said, "Look, if we show up on the call, that means you've made it another week." so 3:00 every Friday at 2:59, I'm like, "Please be on the call. Please be on the call." But every Friday they would ask you questions and things like that, and you'd have an assignment for the next week. So my first assignment, they said, write your pitch. Tell us why we should, why one of the sharks should do this. Watch some episodes and all that stuff. And you're going to do it in front of us as if you're doing it live next Friday. Great. Okay, perfect. So I do it. I write it all up. It's like 3 pages long. And they're like, okay, that's great. That was 6.5 minutes. Get it down, cut it in half for next week. Get it down to 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. Get it down to 3 minutes. So the next week I get it down to 3 minutes. What I thought was 3 minutes. They're like, okay, that was 5 minutes. Like, wow. You need to understand by next week, you have to have it down to 2 minutes. And so the next week, I'm down to 2 minutes. By the time I was all done, you have to get it down to a minute. But by the time you're done, my pitch on paper was this much. It was a paragraph and a half. That was it. And so trying to do that was a crazy exercise for me and for my team to do that, because you're summing up a business, you're summing up a product, and trying to say that this is the best thing in the world with very few words. And it is tough to do, and it's something that the entrepreneurs struggle with. And to your point, I've been a part of some of these investor pitches. Just as a Shark Tank person, they asked me to be a part of those, and that's a big challenge. Is people want to get into a very long explanation, and you're like, look, you have to impress us very quickly. We're either interested or not, and so that's a skill, and it's something that is hard to do.
It really is. It is a skill, and it can be developed. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to write 30-second radio spots many years ago, and to try to get, and not even have the video aspect to it, the visual. Anyway, that's where I learned how to do it, but it's hard for people, and all of us as humans, we want to tell the whole story. If I don't tell them everything, they're not going to completely understand. And they don't realize right now, you don't need them to completely understand, you just need them to get interested. But I just
need their attention. Yep.
You did. I'm not kidding you. I was shocked. And when I timed it, I couldn't believe it. Minute and 3 seconds. It was unreal. Okay.
So I didn't do too bad. I was really close to my minutes. So that's great.
Well, and you were having the out of body experience.
There you go.
What if when you were putting the screen into the window, it went boom, you let go of it or something. The Lord only knows what might have happened.
I am telling you, I had that fear. I told this story. I did a little speaking thing, and I told this story. One of the episodes that I watched was this company who had a door lock that comes up from the bottom, right? And their demonstration was, we have our door and we have this door with a regular lock, and they're supposed to be able to kick in the regular one without any problems. Well, they had a problem with the display and they couldn't kick in the regular one. And these guys pounded on this door, kicking it, drop kicking it. They brought out a sledgehammer and they're pounding against it. And the sharks are laughing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, please don't let that happen to me. Please don't let it happen to me. But yeah, that was one of those fears. I'm like, okay, go really easy putting this in, make it look smooth. So
yeah. But well, anyway, good on you. You did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Okay. So now, you're in the room and you're in there for 2.5 hours. What was that? Were you standing up the whole time? Did you get to sit down? Was there any snack break, bathroom break?
No, one of the things that they say is there's no timeouts, there's no takebacks,
Wow.
there's no breaks. Now, mine was a little bit rare. So typically they're 25 to 40 minutes is what they prepared us for. 25 minutes if you have a good pitch and they want to make a deal. 40 to 45 minutes if you have a good pitch and they're going through the deal portion of it. So we just had a more we had a bigger company than normal Shark Tank companies, and they really wanted to understand the financials, because as we were growing, to your earlier point, we weren't showing much profit, and they wanted to understand why. How were we reinvesting? What was going on here that we showed a bottom line of only a couple $1,000s profit every year. So, and the sharks do really want to understand. They have their notebooks out. They're making tons of notes. They have calculators out. They are doing the things that a normal, a normal counselor, a normal investment group might do if they were looking at investing. So, so a lot of that's all very real. I mean, there's none of the sharks that get into deals just to do something for TV or something like that. They legitimately want to finish these deals and make good deals with good entrepreneurs. So there's just a lot that wasn't sexy in our 2.5 hours, if that makes sense.
The episode's great. As I say, I've watched many of them. I had never seen your episode before. I was surprised at the level of interest, all of the sharks. I can't remember who first said they were out, but it almost seemed like immediately they wished they hadn't said it. Because right away, Lori and Mr. Wonderful and Barbara were like, Lori came in last, I guess. But anyway, it was clear they were interested. They had those buying signals. They're leaning forward. They're asking questions. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Here's something that I always wondered about, and I want to ask you. Okay, they're making you an offer. Well, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars minimum at stake. But when you're talking about a $13.3 million valuation, and really, they didn't whittle you down very much. I don't know what the final number was, but they took your pitch very seriously in terms of the numbers. But what I'm saying is, you're standing there by yourself, having an out-of-body experience. The lights are on, the cameras are on. You've been there all this time, and now you got to make a decision right then. Did you have to make a decision right then? Could you phone a friend? How did that work?
So, I did make a decision right then, and it does take a lot of practice. And I don't know how else to say that other than, I have great partners who, they asked me a lot of questions. They prepped me ahead of time. And then we also prepped the deal making. What if, and we ran through just scenarios and scenarios. What about this? What would be a good counter for this? And so I had some of those things we had already thought about ahead of time. Now, no, don't get me wrong. With all the lights and stuff, it's easy to forget what all those things
I
you
bet.
practice. But you do have to make a decision right there, right then. There's no timeout. Let me go think about it. Let me go talk to somebody else. If they're not in the room with you, you can't talk about it. So, it is. And the other thing about it too, which I didn't realize until we got into this, Shark Tank is a game too. It's not just reality TV. It's not just a business thing. It's a game, and there's rules to the game. And one of the rules to the game is they cannot offer you less than the amount of cash that you're asking for. So we were going in asking for $800,000. I couldn't walk out of there with less than that. I couldn't walk out of there with 700. I couldn't walk out of there with 100,000. They could offer more, but they can't offer less. So again, that's one of those things that you have to be careful of when you're going in and with your ask, because $800,000 is an awful lot of money. So
yeah.
It's actually a lot easier for the smaller companies to go in and ask for $25,000, $50,000, because the sharks are almost like, okay, which pocket do you want to take that out of?
Sure. Yeah.
When you're up into the close to $1 million, we're one of the bigger deals on Shark Tank that, typically they don't come close to $1 million. So
were your partners there at the studio with you, or were they? How did they debrief you about what had happened and what deal you had struck?
So no, as a matter of fact, if you're not going onto the show, you're not allowed on the set. So even though my wife was in LA with me, she was back at the hotel, so she couldn't come. And as a matter of fact, the cell service was so bad in my trailer that when I got back, I couldn't call. Like I have all this excitement, and I'm like, I need to tell
Oh my
somebody.
gosh.
And you also have an NDA because they don't want you talking about it until, a week or two before you air. So from June until January, I couldn't tell anybody. It was like my immediate family who was sworn to secrecy, and my business partners. That was the only people that knew.
Wow. Woo.
So yeah, I'm like trying to send texts out. I'm outside a trailer, like trying to hold my cell phone up to try to tell my wife that I got a deal. And but yeah, it finally got through and got to celebrate with her. But yeah, my partners, it's the same thing. I'm trying to send a group text, and I'm like, we got to deal with Lori.
Almost
And
have to wonder,
go
if they had some kind of cell blocker in that trailer to keep you from communicating. But okay, so do you remember what day of the week that was that you did the filming?
I do, because they came out, so they flew over, but this is all pre-corona, so we were the season before corona hit, right? So so they flew everybody out that was filming for that entire week. So they filmed for 6 days a week for 2 weeks in the summer and then 2 weeks in the fall, and that takes care of the entire season. So we were the first week in the summer, and they bring everybody out on Sunday because they have a big meeting on Monday. And I was supposed to film on Thursday of that week, and they called me on Monday night and looked me that I was filming the next morning. So I lost 2 days of prep. So, yeah, it was a scary phone call too, because what happens is on Monday they line everybody up and they're like, okay, you're doing your pitch, that little 1 minute, right? You're doing that in front of everybody that is part of the show, and they're doing it. They want to make sure that they understand the lighting cues, and this isn't the sharks. This is the producers, the directors, lighting people, all of that. So there's about 50 people that watch you do this. And they make it really clear that some of you are not going to go in front of the sharks this week because you're just not going to do a good enough job in front of us, and we're going to send you home early.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, that was scary. So then I get this phone call
pressure,
on Monday
Joe.
night. What's that?
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, exactly. But I think they want you to feel a little bit of that. You know what I mean? So that you do understand what that's going to feel like going in there. And they don't, if you're going to pass out or you're going to not do very well in front of them, there's no possible way that you're going to do well in front of the sharks and in front of the pressure of having the cameras around you. So,
okay. Well, what I was driving at, so you Tuesday morning is when your time in the ball of fire was. Okay, so here you wake up Wednesday morning. Any buyer's remorse as far as the deal that you took?
Absolutely, actually none. The deal that we took was actually something that we saw Barbara do in previous episodes, where she says, "Hey, look, you keep your wholesale side of the business, which is what we sell to the window manufacturers. We're going to start a brand new retail company over here that we're going to partner with together." So for us, we weren't doing much in retail. We only did about $1 million of retail in 2019. So, which was a very small portion of our business. It was so low risk. Like it was like, hey, look, we're not touching our core business. We're just starting something new that we're not good at anyway, and we're going to have a partner in it. And when Barbara proposed that, and then Lori jumped on it, so it was like the perfect deal for us. And then the shark that we wanted jumped onto that same deal. It was like God came down and said, here's the answer to all your prayers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it really was. It was fantastic for us.
So this may seem like a tangent, but recently Tesla has gotten into a lot of trouble with their solar roof installations because they didn't realize how difficult it is to install a roof. Although anybody who'd been in the roofing business for any period of time could have told them that, and especially when you're not going in with, flexible shingles made out of asphalt and instead have these rigid shingles that are made out of glass, good luck. So they learned that the hard way, and they actually had taken deposits from people who were going to pay $25,000 for a roof, and then they called them back and said, sorry, that's going to be $45,000 after all. And they did give them an opportunity to walk away from the contract. The reason I bring this up is Somebody who hasn't sold windows and doors for 100 years doesn't understand that every hole in the wall is a different size. And if it's even off by a quarter of an inch or a half an inch, then, the wind's going to blow through and the water's going to come in. And so it came down to a lot of discussion among the sharks. They were shocked that every window, almost every window, is custom made. I bring this long explanation up to ask you, has that been an ongoing rub with your relationship with Lori about the idea versus mass production of templated screens versus custom made screens?
So by the time I was done in front of them, they understood as much as they could, within 2 hours of me talking, that this was just a standard size screen is going to be impossible. Now we've had conversations with Lori and her team, since then, and we've reiterated some of those, some of those facts to them. We launched on HomeDepot.com recently, and of course her and her team were part of that. And we are doing some standard sizes that Home Depot carries. So windows that they carry in stock. We're doing some standard size screens that fit those windows, and that's coming up here this summer. But coming to the one size fits all, it took a little while to help them understand that. But now that they do, they don't push. I mean, one of the things about the sharks is they really don't. They really don't have a lot of interest in going in there and running your business for you. They're there as a resource, but they're not going to try to force you. If you're a round peg, they're not going to try to force you into a square hole. And that's that was really refreshing. To have them as a help instead of somebody driving us in a certain direction. There's no tension there, which I was concerned about, just to be honest with you.
And I would have been as well, and I'm glad that you just addressed that. So the type of investing that the sharks do is broadly known as strategic investing, where it's not just their checkbook, but they also bring their Rolodex and their relationships and their experience and their connections and so forth. Prior to going on Shark Tank, had you, and outside of your existing business partners, had you been seeking capital from traditional, let's say, angel investors or venture capitalists?
We weren't. All of our, outside of Lori, all of our investments have been within a group of people that have all invested in the past. We did a round of funding before Shark Tank. And so even going into the show, we didn't necessarily need the funding. We were looking for that strategic partnership. The funding, the money is just a bonus, mainly because you have to do that on Shark Tank. I don't know how else to say it. You can go in there and be like, hey, I'll give you, 20% for nothing. Who's interested? Right. But that was the big advantage for us. Now, some of the Shark Tank companies, they go on and they do need the investment, and they do, that money is important, as important as the strategic side of it. But yeah, I mean, we weren't really looking for that. Now, one of the things that does come from being on Shark Tank is you do have a lot of VCs that come and want to throw money at you. They see you on the show. And so we were inundated with companies that wanted to invest, for the first year. We still get them about once a month now. Somebody will reach out. But again, for us, we're not looking for, we're not necessarily looking for money. We're a big enough company. We can go get a loan. Our banks are great. We have a good, our business is solid. So, unless somebody is strategic, it doesn't make much sense for us to bring somebody else into our team.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think I've just about squeezed every drop out of your experience there on the set. Anything I've missed?
No, I mean, it was the best, scariest experience I've ever had in my entire life. It's one of those experiences that I say it's probably like, I haven't jumped out of an airplane yet, but I assume it's a lot like that. The first time is terrifying. And then the second, third, fourth time, it just, I'd have no problem doing it again. But man, doing it for that first time was terrifying. So nothing's going to scare me in the future. I guarantee that. So
that level of stress brings a lot of energy to the screen.
It does.
with that in mind, let's talk about your podcast, where you're going to be interviewing other people who weren't necessarily successful on Shark Tank, but did appear on the show. What's the name of your podcast and what's it all about?
It's called Lessons from the Tank, and it's just a give back. You know, we one of the universal things for all of the Shark Tank entrepreneurs is we have people reaching out to us. You know, how do I take an idea to the market? How do I take my idea for an invention, or how do I take my prototype and get to the next level? You know, those types of questions happen to every single one of us, and it happens all the time. And so this is just a give back for us where we can answer some of the questions, you know, and help people to understand some of the lessons that we've learned. You know, people think that, you know, you get on Shark Tank and you've made it. Really what happens is you just burn faster and brighter. And so the lessons become, they become bigger and faster than you would normally have had to learn those, you know, without Shark Tank. So we've learned a lot, and I had my first guest was Tiffany Crummins, who was season number 1, episode number 1, winner number 1. She was the very first guest on the podcast, and the lessons she's learned through the past 12 years. And the things that she's gone through have been, I mean, she really paved the way for the rest of us. I mean, she was on the pilot. You know, nobody knew who Mr. Wonderful was, or Barbara Corcoran. You know, they were kind of unknowns. And so you know, she actually has an organization that helps women entrepreneurs, you know, be successful. You know, Tiffany does. And again, every single one of the Shark Tank entrepreneurs wants to give back. We really do have a heart for small business. And so this is just one of the ways that we can give back. And it's called Lessons from the Tank. You can check it out on lessonsfromthetankpodcast.com, or just search for Lessons from the Tank on Apple or Google or Spotify.
That's great. And I will put a link to the podcast in the show notes for this episode. We're just about out of time, but with the idea of helping business owners in mind, I want to come back to the home improvement industry, or remodeling comes by a lot of names. And I don't know, do you know that your friend Tony Hody was a past guest here on Radio Free Enterprise?
I heard that.
Okay.
I did hear that. And
well,
Tony's a great guy.
He's an amazing guy. It truly is. And I know that you recently presented at his annual conference, LeadCon. And here's what I want to drive at and ask you to share your thoughts on. Within the home improvement industry, a lot of industries, there are business owners who get it when it comes to marketing and sales. And there are those who don't. And the difference between their success is night and day. And so I know, and that's why I'd asked Tony to come on, because he's all about excellence and superiority in customer experience, customer development, customer everything, marketing and sales, making sure people are happy with what you do and giving you repeat and referral business and generating leads, etc. What, if you could share one thought or maybe a couple with any business owner about why they need to focus on marketing, or a great suggestion on how they can improve their marketing and sales, what do you think that would be?
Well, I think the first thing is for people to understand the difference between marketing and sales. I think sometimes, especially if you're not in the marketing industry, you think that they're the same thing, and they're 100% are not. You know, marketing is branding. You know, marketing is a thing that's impossible to really understand your ROI. You know, for us to go and say, hey, what's our ROI on these marketing videos that we're putting out? I can never tell you if I sold one more screen because of these videos that I put out. But what I know is that it made my company more visible to the outside world. You know, so that's the first thing is, I hear a lot of people, they talk about, oh, we do great marketing. Our guys are out there selling all the time. We're like, whoa, hold on a second. A guy knocking on the door is not marketing. And so that's the one thing is, try to understand the difference there. But from the other side, I think I'm a sales guy. I love presenting. I love being in front of the customers. I truly like my customers. That's one thing that a lot of, especially when you get small businesses that might start struggling a little bit, they start not liking their customers. I've heard so many times where people are like, my customers are so stupid. Like, well, maybe you should figure out what their problem is, because without them, you don't survive. We are within our company now. I have close to 160 employees now, across all of our factories and stuff. And I still say that we are a sales and marketing company first, and we happen to sell something that is pretty cool that we make. Our customers come first. We make sure that every single one of our associates that are making our product up through the customer service people that talk to the customers understand that the only reason that we exist is to make our customers happy. And so again, that's a paradigm shift for a lot of companies that they think that manufacturing, we're here to manufacture something. Nope, you're here to keep your customers happy, because as soon as they're not, they stop buying, and when they stop buying, you stop manufacturing. And so again, I think it's more of the mindset of companies that are out there is the biggest. That will be my biggest advice is to try to shift that to sales first. Even when my initial investors, one of the things that they came back with was, if you were not a salesman, if we do not think that you would have made a very good CEO of a startup company. That was interesting to me, because I was just being me, but that was something that they were looking for. And when they put their trust in, because we have millions of dollars invested at this point, that was something that was really important to them, is that I was a sales guy that could go out there and tell my company's story to our customers, and that I was going to be a customer advocate first. Again, we protect our customers are they're fantastic. You know what I mean? And it's not like we do stupid things because of our customers, but we're customer advocates first. We make sure that our customers are happy, because they're why we exist.
There's no arguing with that. And it's funny, you said 3 or 4 things right there, Joe, that we could go down rabbit holes on each one of them that has to do with sales and the difference between sales and marketing. And did you sell another screen because of your videos? Well, you sure as heck sold somebody at Sony Pictures on something with those videos. And so they're all necessary for the growth of a business. And I don't know, maybe you'll be kind enough to come back and talk to me again on here so we can go back into some of those rabbit holes.
I would absolutely love to.
Joe Altieri, thank you so much for joining me today on Radio Free Enterprise.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Joe, and thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Frank Felker saying I'll see you on the radio.
And now, a man who maintains a shrine to Mark Cuban in the basement of his suburban home. Frank Felker and Radio Free Enterprise.